We all know why we're here. So let me ask you a question then. Why the big secret? Truth seekers were really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we're knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, truth seekers were really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, break it down, now can you peep it? They're deceiving all the people. Let me ask you, what's the secret? Misinformation and lies, a devious disguise. They want the EMF blast until our brains is fried. Oh, point their beams in the sky. Oh, it's a movie now. This world is all CGI, their plot is truly foul. But we're here to rise up and bring the real. Time is now, truth seekers, y'all know how I feel. Truth seekers were really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we're knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, truth seekers were really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, why the big secret?
All right, truth seekers. This is Roderick Martin. I want to welcome you to Forbidden Knowledge TV. We are Why the Big Secret podcast and YouTube channel. And do I have a show for you here tonight? First of all, I want to thank you for being here tonight, because you could have been any other place tonight, but you chose to be right here, right now. And with that being said, I'm going to serve you. Now, how am I going to do that? I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you about it. We're going to be the boldest, baffling, belligerent YouTube channel in the world, creating captivating conversations that will certainly cause controversy. So join me and Richard Dolan tonight as we uncover those UFOs, aliens, and government secrets. But first of all, I'd like to tell you this. I want to bid you good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be in the 24 time zones watching this show. And I am located in the Jumbo State. This is where those UFOs come out to play, and it's a Texas thing, y'all. So first thing, put the kids to bed, because what we talk about probably cause a little nightmares, and I want you to blame me. And if you have a mate who do not believe in UFOs and you haven't cooked dinner, let me give you the Texas recipe. We're talking about some biscuits, some bacon, a little butter. It will be all really quick. But in the meantime, do I have a show for you tonight? And I'm excited because you know why? We're going to go down not just that rabbit hole tonight. We're going to uncover some things that those big sick keepers are hiding from us. But in the meantime, like I said, I want to welcome you. And if you had a great weekend, I hope you did. And let's give it an opportunity at this point. So I'm excited. I hope you excited. I'm ready. I'm hyped. I've been taking my nutrition. Yes, I've been losing a few pounds right before your eyes. And you'll notice it in some time. Not right now. But in the meantime, I am just ready to rock and roll. And so what I'm going to do is get ready to shut this music off for you. And we're going to rock and roll right now. And so with that excitement, I get to say, once again, I'm Roderick Martin. I want to welcome each and every one of you for being here tonight. You are at the Forbidden Knowledge TV on Tuesdays. However, I am hosting this from the Why the Big Secret YouTube channel. We come here on Tuesday, thankful of the greatness of Billy Carson, who allowed me to serve you guys, and all you are listening as well. In the meantime, I want to say that in a minute, Richard will be here with us, and you might want to take some notes or something, because you're going to learn something tonight, because this is what we do. We try to get you to understand what's happening. But before we go through all of that, I need to set the tone for you. And one of the things that I talk about to our truth seekers over at the Why the Big Secret channel is that your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. It's time to think why. And if you don't open up the why box and go down this narrative of why, then you would just hear all the narratives that you hear out there. So tonight, we're going to break through some of that. And I'm going to do it purposely, because I brought the person here who knows about it purposely. This guy is the bomb. And actually, I'm just not going to talk about him as the man himself, but somebody who I've always looked up to in this industry, because if you're going to go to the facts, you got to go to the sources. And then if you're going to read some things, and they do keep secrets in books, he got the books. Like I say, I got them, and I've been having them, and we'll talk about that some other time. You get you a copy. But in the meantime, I'm excited about that. So if you are ready to hear a little bit about these UFOs, and we're going to get into the cover-ups. And one of the things about it is actually happening, and it's going to be a little uncensored tonight, meaning you're going to hear some stuff. And like I did before, put those kids to bed. This is not where they want to go with this. So what I'm going to do is let you understand something. I'm only here to bring you some information. And my job is to bring you things that you can see, things that you can hear, or people you can talk to awaken your curiosity to the possibility that we're not alone in this universe. Now, I'm not saying I don't believe that, but I want you to start somewhere, and this is going to be a great night for those skeptics. So if you got some people who really don't think they're out here and what they look like, yeah, you heard me, what they look like, get them on in here tonight, because you may be surprised, and get your mirror out. You really be surprised. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. As you know, there's a lot of things been happening in the news real quick. I'm not going to get into it, but go check out a couple of these articles. One that John Greenwald posted the other day about the moon rocks not some moon things that fell out the sky. Actually was burning for quite some time. Anyway, I'm just taunting you with that. You go check that out for yourself, and we'll do that. So I'm going to get Richard in here a little early. We'll see if he's knocking at the door. So we're going to bring him in just a few moments. And you got to have, he really wants to come. So I got to really get him in here, because he is not playing with this. All right. So let me get Richard on in here a little early with us right now. Richard, what's going on?
Hey, Roderick. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
I really appreciate you being here. And as always, too, you could have been any other place tonight, and you chose to be right here, right now. And with that being said, I want to say thank you on the behalf of the audience that's here already, and as well as the people who's going to see this video a little later as well. So again, I just want to thank you for that. And I have one quick announcement I forgot to make. So for the audience, coming up on September 13th, Nick Pope will be here with us. And so definitely mark your calendars for that as well. And you're going to enjoy that conversation. So that was just a quick note I forgot to do in the beginning. So Richard, all right, man, we've had a great conversation. You know, you and I think we've been in a couple of shows, and, you know, we didn't film at the same time, but you was in the Black Knight satellite, right? Yeah. And
yes, Billy Carson shot me himself for that film, and it was great. It's an interesting topic. I'm glad that you were there too.
Yeah. So, you know, again, that just let me know I was just sitting in the air of greatness, you know, and all that, and with you being there as well. But in the meantime, you know, we're going to get started in this conversation. And I like to just get, because I'm not going to go down this path of how did you get started, what's going on, and forget that. This is Richard Dolan. Okay. And if you don't know who it is, I'm not going to say you've been under a rock. You've been on the wrong planet a little bit when it comes down to this. That's how I feel about it. So you don't have to say it. I said it. So we're not going to put it out there.
It's very nice. Thank you. And by the way, we people could know you and I had a nice telephone conversation earlier today, which was probably about as long as our interview here is going to be. We were on for quite a while.
Yes,
Very nice.
yes, it was, and I
very
really
good.
appreciate it, and learned a lot, was taught a lot, and also just really, you guys, if you was just a fly on the wall, you would have heard some good stuff. But we're not going to leave it all out. We're going to talk about some of that tonight for y'all. So I'm going to start with a few questions, and then we're going to get some deep dive in once we get down to this. And one of the questions I actually wrote here was, what would you say to people who want to know, is there any evidence of UFOs? And the reason I want to ask that question is because I still think there's a lot of people out there, Richard, that don't even believe that they exist still today. And it's on mainstream media. It's everywhere. And we still got a faction of the population that still do not believe, and they want the evidence. And almost to a point, they just want the UFO to knock at the door just like that and say, okay, I'm here. But that's not happening. So what do we go from there? How do we begin with that? And how will we get them as far as what should they believe in? I know I believe, but if we're talking to the audience, what should they believe in?
Yeah, a great question. And I would say my feeling is a lot of people, they may not actively disbelieve in UFOs, but it's just not part of their life. They got too many other things to do, and it's not something that they think about. And on top of that, they're surrounded by a daily media, even now after the last 5 years, where there's been more talk about UFOs or UAP in the news. It's still not as though you've got powerful political leaders saying, oh, yes, it's real, they're here. Some people are saying that, but so it's easy for people not to pay any attention to it. But there are people who are very skeptical as well. And I guess what I would say is, rather than say, here is the proof for UFOs, I would say, here's what I would say is good evidence. So one thing that that has always gotten my attention, and I know you and I were not going to talk about how I got into UFOs, but I will just say this one thing, which is that when I began studying this almost 30 years ago now, wow, I knew nothing about the subject, and I just started from a point of view of asking, what's the actual best evidence that the military and the U.S. government's been interested in this? So I wasn't interested in anything other than documentation showing that the government was concerned. And I did find a tremendous amount of that. That's easy to find. You mentioned John Greenwald earlier in here, and of course, people can go to his website, The Black Vault, and find mountains and mountains of UFO data. But even if you don't go there, there's a number. When I was researching this in the 90s, there were lots of books that had documents released of the Freedom of Information Act, military encounters. The thing that got me right off the bat was seeing how many good and dramatic United States military encounters there were with these objects that they could not identify, objects that looked disc-shaped, objects that were hanging out over sensitive military installations, over nuclear facilities. Jets would be scrambled to intercept these things frequently, and being always outclassed by them. And then what was a shocker to me is reading the reports. One after the next. And, here's the thing, like, if it's just one or two or five or maybe a dozen of these, you might think, all right, perhaps these pilots or these radar operators or someone else, maybe there was a glitch. Maybe they had a mistaken identity case, something like that. But when you get 50, 100, several hundred, from my very first book, which covered the first couple of decades of the Cold War, I documented about 300 U.S. military encounters with UFOs. And even that's just scratching of the surface. This just goes on and on and on. And I just think, you can argue if they're alien, you can argue if they're classified black budget human, you can argue that they come from another dimension of reality. All of that's later. But the first thing that I would say we have to recognize, if we're being honest intellectually, is that there is a genuine phenomenon involving technology that appears to be radically advanced over anything that we're supposed to have then or now. And that has been a matter of great concern to not just the U.S. military, because I was talking about them, but also every other military. The Russians absolutely have, as far as I can tell, I mean, we don't have all the records available to us from the Russians, but there's enough. And it's quite obvious to me that their history of UFO encounters is every bit as rich as the United States. The Russians have had a lot of this. And then other nations in other regions of the world, ditto. Militaries around the world have encountered this, and they don't know how to deal with it. So I would say there's clearly something going on. You go through the historical documentation, and that's a way to get you started. And then that leads to just one question after another. But yeah, I would say, if you're a total skeptic, don't get greedy. Don't think you're going to like answer every mystery about this with a week's worth of research and that you're going to solve the riddle. It's not going to happen. But what you will find is that this is going to take you into some deep areas of study that will open up many more questions.
I tell people all the time, if you find somebody who said they know everything, take off running in your own spaceship, because that's not it. But I think, you say you've been doing this for 30 years, and it's safe to say, I'm a MUFON field investigator, and every now and then I'll get a report and they'll say something about flying saucers. I mean, like, really? It's like it's like a 1957 Chevy. We don't drive those no more. We got new Escalades. And the same thing for them. They're not driving flying saucers anymore. They outdated. And that's not really trying to tell people how
Well, no, I would say that's not really true. There are definite disc-shaped objects that are being recorded all the time. But there's other objects as well. A lot of triangles, very widely seen. Often black triangles, sometimes other colors. But no, there's definitely disc-shaped objects out there.
Okay. All right. So here's the main thing. I get people that ask me the ultimate question, and they'll be like, well, Roderick, have you seen a extraterrestrial? Of course, we got this little gray thing over here, and they always ask me, what do they look like? And oftentimes I kind of give them this look, and I say, what if we look like them? Is that a possibility? I think we talked a little bit about that tonight. Let's kind of let the audience really in on something why the big secret that they don't know of.
Well, yeah. Look, this is one of the fascinating but frustrating things about the subject for me. My mind, I try to be very logical. And so my mind wants there to be one type of alien.
Okay.
Because to me, if there's many types of aliens that people have noticed, then that gets confusing. And I start to think, are people making things up? Is there fantasy involved? What is it? So it's tricky. But here's the thing. I have had to come to terms with this variety. And what's interesting about the variety is that there's consistency in that variety. So it's not like things are just, people coming up with all these crazy ideas. They're coming up with several types again and again. So one type, we could say, are the gray aliens. So typically short, 4 feet tall, maybe 3 feet tall, big black wraparound eyes, tiny mouth, barely a nose, no identifiable ears, that type of thing. Most people know what that is. Now, the thing even about the grays is that there's a lot of variation. So you have very short grays and tremendous variation in height, like much more than you get with human beings. Some of them are described as even 2 feet tall. It's ridiculous, but it's happened. 3 feet, 4 feet. And then there's tall grays that are described as being upwards of 6 feet tall, and sometimes even a little taller than that. And that's just how it is. That's a very big range there. There are other descriptions as well. So sometimes people will describe beings that look reptilian. We've all heard about the reptilians. And for the longest time, I was very resistant to some of those stories because it just seemed too crazy, too out there. But the problem is when you interview these people yourself, or you watch them very carefully during video interviews, things like that, or you read transcripts, it's very clear these people are very sincere, and they're not crazy. They're in their right mind. And again, we have to ask ourselves, what can account for this other than the fact that these people saw what they are claiming to have seen? So you have reptilian descriptions. You've got descriptions of very tall insect type beings, like sometimes described as praying mantis type. It's
That's the part that
ultra
shocked me a lot, Richard.
ultra
Because
creepy.
yeah, when you
Yeah.
think about it, even when Nolan did the interview with Tucker Carlson the other day, and he was talking about the possibility of, an octopus eventually become intelligent enough to operate some technology. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow as well over time. And you think of this mantis, and all of a sudden I just saw one outside on my window, and this thing supposed to have evolved into flying spacecraft. Same thing as a reptilian. I used to own a exotic animal pet store, and I had snakes and lizards and all that, and they couldn't get out. I had them just in a tank. They couldn't open it. They didn't have no.
Yeah.
So how do we get there to a reptilian from that?
Right. Well, one thing that Gary Nolan said in that interview, and it's interesting you brought that up because it was a good interview, and Gary Nolan's quite brilliant. But when he said that about an octopus or any other kind of crazy creature, I thought, come on, you know better. You know better, Gary Nolan. There's a reason, we have 2 arms, 2 legs for a reason, because it's really super efficient.
Yeah.
Like octopuses, I think they're intelligent. They've got good eyes. Their eyes are almost exactly the same as our eyes, actually.
Okay.
But they're sea creatures with tentacles. It's very unlikely, I would think, that they're going to develop technology just due to normal limitations. 2 arms, 2 legs seems to be a good system, and it could very well be that life elsewhere in the universe might, it's something called convergent. I think it's convergent evolution, where unrelated species will still evolve in a similar way because their needs are also similar. And the body plan of having 2 arms, 2 legs, standing upright is a pretty good one. So it could very well be that beings elsewhere in the universe there could be intelligent beings of all types, but intelligent beings to develop technology. It's quite possible that maybe that's more restricted. So that's what I would say to that. But to finish your thought about, how would other aliens develop technology? Well, I don't have the answer to that, so I don't know how much I could speculate on it.
Well, I got one thing.
But I have some ideas. But the last thing I just want to mention is that and this was the hardest pill for me to swallow, is that there are so many reports by individuals who have encountered UFOs, flying saucers, these types of landed craft, and have talked about seeing human beings, totally human-looking beings connected with them.
Yeah,
totally. And when I would first hear these for years and years, I was always aware of it, but I have to say, emotionally, I was quite resistant to the idea. It just didn't make sense to me. I wanted this subject to make sense, and having human beings operating spacecraft, to me, did not make sense. I'm like, we evolved here on Earth. Am I to believe that other beings that look just like us evolved on another planet or another star system, and they just happen to look like human beings? That's no sale. I'm not buying that. But so what I decided to do, instead of trying to debunk that notion over and over again, because roughly, I don't know, maybe close to half of all encounter reports deal with human-looking beings. I've personally spoken with quite a few people who have had these types of encounters with totally human-looking beings, usually very telepathic as well, but that's a whole other thing. But I started to ask myself a different question, which is, how could this happen? How could this be possible? Rather than saying, how is it impossible? I wanted to know, how could this happen? And there's a couple of scenarios by which you could get this variety. First of all, not just human beings, but the insect creatures, the greys, the reptilians. Like, one of the objections you can have with these other beings is that all of those creatures are Earth creatures. Like, reptiles live on Earth. We know this. Insects live on Earth. We know that. You know what I'm saying? So, like, and the gray aliens, okay, so there's no examples of grays. But I think all of these creatures might it's quite possible that they have been genetically altered in one way or another in order to deal with our world. If you're an actual alien from another planet, one thing you may not be able to do is just walk around on the planet surface here and survive. You know, the gravity might be wrong for your biology. Maybe you evolved on a planet with different gravity, and Earth might be too heavy, or you might be too heavy on Earth, or the bacteria, the microbes, the solar radiation, like all of those things are unique to Earth. And it could very well be the case that any alien species would have a very difficult time functioning here. But what if you were to take native Earth DNA, and if you were really good at manipulating DNA, which I have no doubt that they are, you might be able to grow or create your own avatars that would be able to function and do your work for you on the planet. It's just a thought. I don't know if that's the case, but it's one thing that struck me as possible. And with the human-looking beings, I mean, there's all kinds of theories that might account for that. One could be that an alien species many years ago just scooped up a bunch of humans and said, these can be useful. Let's keep them and bring them into our society. Right. Maybe those humans are part of middle management now for some alien civilization, for all I know. But when you look at the accounts that people have had with these human beings, they're not nasty. They're not evil. They don't seem to be out to get us. But they're very standoffish. They don't really engage, for the most part, in close communication with us. They're not part of our society. So maybe they aren't part of our society, but maybe they were once part of our species, our world. So there's a couple of possibilities that I wonder about regarding that, but I can't pretend that I've got the full answer, even though I've been looking at this for 30 years now.
Now, what about, we both share Christianity. I'm a Christian, and although I think outside the box, and could it be the evidence is right in front of us when we think about, and you can, tap around if you want, Genesis, chapter 1, verse 26, let's make man in our image, in the likeness of ourselves. And I tell people, is it possible? And I go, what if we look like them? You know what I mean? And
no, I follow you. Yeah. Well, it's good that you brought that up, because I have, I don't know how to characterize my spiritual belief, but I would say that I'm very sympathetic to Christianity.
Okay.
So I'll definitely say that. I have no problem saying that. And, I've been trying to figure out, like, what is my actual cosmological belief on all of that? And
right.
I'm still working on that. But, what was that song? Jesus is just all right with me. I'm perfectly happy to say that. I think his philosophy is top of the line. It's amazing. So, but in terms of what you're getting at, I'm not sure I subscribe to that. So, like, we look like the aliens, because I'm still, like, very much a strong evolutionist. So I believe in the evolution of life on this planet, and that includes the human species. And having studied it, and I'm actually very, very interested in that subject. I've read a lot about it, and I'm not like some great expert, but I've studied it. So I think that our species definitely evolved over a period of a couple of million years to be what we are now. Now, it's totally possible that, and I've wondered about this, that we've been tweaked and enhanced along the way. And I do think it is a possibility that we have been. And I do think that there has been at least one of these groups that are here. I think there's multiple ET or alien groups. At least one of them's been here for a long time. And I suspect that they've monitored us for a very, very long time. That's kind of a mind-boggling thing to consider, because you think about the long range, like the ability to have such a long range monitoring capability just is astonishing to me. But I think it's quite possible. There's enough good, very ancient, let's say, UFO stories that make me think, yeah, this has been going on for a very long time, but possibly on a low key. So are we made to, do we look like them? Do they look like us? My feeling is if they look like us, it's because they are us or were us and somehow broke off from us at some point in the past, and now they've become something different. I'm not yet at the point where I'm willing to think, oh yeah, they created us exactly in their image, just like in Genesis. I get what you're saying. It could be that we were given maybe the final piece of our mental puzzle was provided by them. One thing that I'm still fascinated by is what we might call the creative explosion, when human beings, about 50,000 years ago, roughly speaking, you talk to all these paleoanthropologists who study human origins, and they'll all say about 50,000 years ago is when we first developed truly articulated language, like sophisticated language. Also, when we developed like musical instruments, cave art. It's like the light bulb in our mind went on. We developed the earliest known rituals, ritualistic behavior, all started around 45, 50,000 years ago. So I think something happened kind of all at once. And it's like it turned our mind from one thing to this other thing. So I'm not sure if I'll ever have any answers to that. I wasn't around 50,000 years ago, but I do think something happened. And sometimes I do wonder, like, were we tweaked, or what was it that sparked our minds just to turn on like that?
So where are they? You get all these people talk about, all right, we have benevolence, we got malevolence, we have good and bad ones, but either or, neither one of them has popped itself out the rabbit hat and said, here I am, in a big way, so to speak. Why is that? And yeah, just plain, why is that?
Right.
Why they haven't announced themselves?
One thing I would like to ask first is, like, why are they here? And why do they appear to be here in such great numbers? So, for example, like, as I was saying, there's good reason to think that UFO sightings, good ones, have gone back for many centuries and maybe many thousands of years. I think probably yes. And it could be also that there were more sightings in the ancient past than I am aware of. But I somehow don't think that there was all that many. I think in the last century, I would be willing to bet that genuine numbers of sightings have gone way, way, way up. And that is because we human beings in this last century or more have become very, very interesting to any observing intelligence that has the ability to watch us. We've become very interesting. You go back 200-300 years or more, and our whole civilization was basically animals pulling carts. And, we didn't have electricity. We didn't have we had no internet. We had nothing else that was really all that advanced. So there wouldn't have been much that they could do with us. There wouldn't have been anything we could have done about them. Nothing. So we were just not at the level. But we discovered science a couple of hundred years ago, and we have gone through massive industrialization and massive creation of this scientific infrastructure where, from 200 years ago, we developed the railroads and the telegraph, the telephone, cars, aircraft, everything, up to computers and iPhones and smartphones and beyond. We're on the cusp now of very, very advanced breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, nanotechnology. We've cracked the human genome. We're already starting on the road to transhumanism. Like now, this is an incredible thing. Like in the snap of a finger, we've done all of that in terms of the timeline. And so I suspect that any species that has the ability to observe us has realized, okay, these humans are now becoming very interesting. Now is the time that we want to be checking them out. And that's what I suspect is happening. There are so many. This is one of the things that I know you're a MUFON investigator, so you're probably aware, but I think many people are not aware when we talk about UFOs, just how many really great UFO sightings take place every year. It's unbelievable.
I don't think they want it.
It's incredible. I mean, we don't really know because most of these sightings don't get a genuine investigation because we don't have the ability. But it's quite obvious. We're talking, you've got the MUFON database. the Mutual UFO Network. You've got the National UFO Reporting Center, New Fork, it's called. Each of those sites has more than 5,000 sightings reported every year. And I've tried to find out. There's not a lot of overlap. And then that's not even all for North America. Most of those are just North America. So that's 10,000 sightings minimum. Now, that's not all alien craft, obviously, but I've gone through a lot of these reports, and I will just say many of them are quite good. More than 10% will make anyone who's reading them stop and just say, wow. So if you just say 10%, that would be 1,000 good reports a year. But then you have to realize how many people see UFOs and they don't report them. A lot. And then how many UFOs are there that we're not even seeing? These things are very stealthy. They are very, very, very difficult to spot. When you read a UFO report, it's often it's quick. It's quick.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's like, it was there and it's gone. Yeah,
exactly. So, like, what I would say is, there's a lot of this activity, and I think I was saying to you in our phone conversation earlier, but like one of the things that really has fascinated me, and I feel is very important and never discussed, is one type of sighting, which is someone will be up in the middle of the night. It's 3 a.m. and they want to get some fresh air. They want to smoke a cigarette, whatever they do. And they're outside and they will see often a black triangle or sometimes a disc-shaped object, silhouetted, difficult to see, but they see it. And it's just hovering at like 200 feet altitude over someone's house, middle of the night. I've read so many of these reports. Like, this is one definite theme. So these objects are hanging out in people's residential neighborhoods. And I would just like to ask, why? What are they doing? If you're in a craft at 3 a.m. at an altitude of 200 feet over someone's house, what things could you be doing? Well, one, I assume, might be abducting or somehow monitoring someone in the middle of the night. Maybe there's some remote method that they do this by, or maybe they go in physically. I don't know how it is all the time. But this is one major type of report, and I've read it too many times, so it's obviously a pattern. Someone is doing that. So when you're asking, I think you're kind of moving toward, like, what is their agenda?
Right.
And there's a couple of potential agendas here. So one is they see humanity. We've developed nuclear weapons. We've developed strong artificial intelligence, all of that. They're probably thinking this species is now about to become potentially disruptive.
Okay.
That's right. We've got the keys to the kingdom. We got the matches. Stanton Friedman used to say, we got the fireworks, and now we just found the matches. So they're thinking, okay, we're going to monitor them. Do they want to infiltrate? It's a fair question to ask. I think the answer is possibly yes. If I were one of them, I would certainly want to infiltrate humanity's power structure.
But wouldn't they want to do that when we had bow and arrows and muskets, instead of nuclear weapons now? Why wouldn't they have done it then? It would have been a better...
Well, who's to say they didn't? I mean, we don't really know. If they have the ability to insinuate themselves into our world, they may have been doing this all along. Is it possible that they've just been guiding this process for hundreds of years and we just don't know? I mean, that's a real possibility.
Yeah,
I remember having a conversation with one researcher. He was really funny. He was really right on. He just said, these beings, they may be so far ahead of us. He said, imagine when you drive out of your house in the morning to go to work and you have a dog home and your dog's wondering, like, where's he going? And then he said, imagine dogs getting together and having conferences and asking, where do my humans go?
Right.
It's like, they'll have no idea. And it's quite possible, maybe we're at a better level of trying to figure this out than dogs might be, but it could very well be that these beings have the ability just to run circles around us, and we just don't know. We're not able to compete, quite possibly, if we're not on their level. But I think that they are engaged in our society because we are becoming quite quite a thing to behold now. We're actually, progress doesn't just go in a linear fashion. I don't believe that. I think progress goes by jumps. You jump from one level to another. And I think we're about to jump right into their world. And I think they know this. So that's one reason they're here. And maybe the local galactic neighborhood is quite possibly here for that same reason. And why do they not announce themselves? Why don't they land on the White House lawn? Why don't they tell, us openly who and what they are? A couple of reasons, possibly. One could be, even under the best of circumstances, maybe it's not easy. I talked to one abductee who I think put it very well. He said, these beings, their thinking is so fast, they have to slow themselves down almost painfully to be able to even communicate with us.
Really?
They don't communicate by flapping their gums like we do. He says they're telepathic, and they have to. And he said also they're basically in a hive mind. So it's very like genuine communication with us is not necessarily easy. Imagine if we were like studying a group of, gorillas in Central or Southern Africa. And like we're studying them and, they're intelligent creatures, but are you just going to walk up to the lead gorilla there and say, hey, I'd like to shake your hand?
Right.
Let's establish diplomatic relations. Like, no, you'd never do that. And it's quite possible that that's where they are. Now, there's another reason they may not wish to openly announce themselves, and that's if they're up to something.
Oh, really?
What if they are abducting people? What if they are taking people at 3 a.m, which in fact, I think they are. And what if they're doing something that maybe we would not be too happy about if it were out in the open to be discussed? So I think that would definitely be a reason. But it would be, I think, even if they could communicate with us, this is a little mental game I played off and on over the years. It's like, let's say we were to go back in history with a time machine, and we were to go back to human society of even a mere 1,000 years ago.
Okay.
So we're back there and we're kind of trying to fit in. What could we really tell those people about the nature of our world today? Could we tell them that the earth goes around the sun? Like that by itself would be kind of a shock. Could we tell them that the earth was over 4 billion years old? And, could we tell them about bacteria? Could we tell them about microscopic organisms? Could we tell them about our smartphones? Like, no, none of that. Their heads would explode. There would be no way that we could tell them that. And that's us wanting to be nice to them. I mean, we would completely disrupt their society if we were to do that. They wouldn't be ready for it.
Same for us getting crash retrievals, and now we trying to reverse engineer. And of course, they asked them for more money to do that. Isn't that like the same thing?
Yeah. Well, there have been, in my opinion, several genuine, real retrievals of downed UFOs.
Okay.
So that's a whole other topic. And yes, I believe there's been a lot of that. And the few leaks have come out on this, and a number of them have said this has been very, very difficult to make progress on.
That's what I was saying.
Science is so far ahead of us.
Yeah.
There have been these statements. Now, personally, I'm not sure if I believe that 100%.
Okay.
I think that there probably has been more progress in our attempts to replicate what these other beings have than has been led on. It's very probable, like we haven't duplicated the nature of their craft. What if their craft work on a connection of consciousness to propulsion? There's been a number of accounts that this might be the case. I mean, actually, 20 years ago, Steven Spielberg did the miniseries Taken, and he incorporated that idea into the series. But in fact, he didn't invent that notion. That's been out there. Maybe we haven't been able to do that, but we may have been able to do other things. And I do think there are some of these accounts that I tend to believe. I tend to believe the account of what's known as the Alien Reproduction Vehicle, the ARV. That's from the late 1980s, and that's our own flying saucer. And I think that we've got one. I think we've made several of those. That's my opinion. So I think, we probably do still struggle to understand a lot of their science. I'm sure that's right. But we're not where we were 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. We've gone a long road toward understanding a lot of the science of how these things do what they do. So we're very rapidly, people are shocked to hear this, but I think we're on the road to catching up with some of these species.
Really?
It's not like if they're a million years ahead, we'll never, ever, ever catch up to them. I don't know about that.
In what way? I mean, like, wouldn't be, you mean like medical science? Well, I guess.
I mean, in every way. I mean, in every single way. I mean, in biotech. I mean, in technology. I mean, in artificial intelligence. I think we're moving up exponentially, hyperbolically into another level. We're not just gradually having incremental progress here. I think we're actually jumping up by leaps and bounds. So we're moving into a new stage of humanity. I call it the fourth stage of humanity. For hundreds of thousands of years, we were hunters and gatherers with spears, and we'd kill a big animal and drag it back to our campsite. And that was us for most of our existence. That's what we did. And just a mere 10,000 years ago, we developed agriculture and domesticated animals and started developing cities for the first time. At least this is my opinion. We developed writing for the first time. We invented the wheel, metallurgy, pottery, all of these things gave us human civilization. That's stage 2. Stage 3 was when we developed science and industry. Only a couple of 100 years ago was when we started. And I think we're moving into stage 4, which is all digital. It's digital control. It's advanced computing. It's advanced, all kinds of advanced technology and artificial intelligence and genetic engineering, transhumanism. So that's going to recreate fundamentally what we are. That's orders of magnitude beyond what we were born into. And we're not done with the full transition, but it's happening. And so we're not, there may be incremental progress after that, but is it realistic for us to think that all species engage in technological progress all the time? Is that actually realistic? Is that how the world works? Like you're just constantly coming up with new and more stuff? I don't think so. At some point, you got to hit a plateau. That's what I think. And I think they're at a plateau, and we may get to that plateau.
Sorry to interrupt there, but you caught me at something when you were saying how they are now interested in us. I read somewhere, and I'm not really for sure. I don't know if it was either in one of the Anunnaki books where they talked about the Tower of Babel, where the humans at this time were trying to reach the gods, and they all start trying to build this tower. And the extraterrestrials wasn't happy about that. So they came and said, wait a minute, we're going to put y'all on 4 corners of the earth, change the tongues and languages. Now, that was then with no technology. What would they do to us now that we are really getting off the planet? And you said,
I have a different take on the Tower of Babel.
Okay, well,
so we'll have a different opinion on it. And I mean, I respect where you're coming from, but I don't share that take on it. It's a great story.
All right.
First of all, it's a wise story.
Okay, gotcha.
And another ancient society I'm a big fan of were the ancient Greeks, and they had the same type of attitude, which is basically, do not put yourself at the level of the gods.
Okay.
And this is what the story of Tower of Babel is. It's like, we're going to reach up to the level of God, and God just says, oh, no, you didn't. You're not going to do that. I'm going to disperse you.
Yes.
Okay. And the Greeks, I mentioned them, they had the same concept. It was called hubris. You read ancient Greek tragedies, and there's always a hero, and he did like these great deeds, but his great mistake is thinking he was higher up on the level than he was. And you start thinking you're like the gods, they will smack you down. And I think that's very wise, actually. But in terms of, is there a historical reality behind the Tower of Babel? I don't know where I stand on that. And I would not believe that's how languages started.
Gotcha.
That's not my
I thought they
opinion.
might have we had languages, but they just figured, let's just split them up so they can't communicate to come together as one, to almost like
Right.
what is happening in the dark already. They're trying to
Mhm.
bring this one world. I think we talked
Now,
about
but
the digital age earlier
well,
today.
here's something you're saying that I think I could be very much on board with, which if you're indicating that these other beings may not be all that happy
Yes.
with humanity becoming totally self-empowered. So
Mm.
if that's what you're getting at,
Yeah,
that's
that's what it is.
entirely possible. Yes, absolutely. That could
Yeah,
absolutely be the case. And it's
yeah,
not like, does that make them bad? Well, it might from our point of view. Of course, from their point of view, we might be the bad ones. We're pretty violent, right? We're very
right.
assertive, very aggressive. We detonate a lot of nuclear ordnance. I mean, from 1945 to the end of the 20th century, this planet saw detonations of over 2,000 atomic bombs. Over
Whew.
2,000 nuclear detonations took place. 2,000, more than that. I mean, it's incredible. And so if they're looking at this thinking, what is wrong with these people? Like they might be thinking that, and they might think, we're going to have to manage them a little bit more carefully. We can't let them do this or this or this. That could be their perspective. Now,
Who you think?
we have
Yeah,
our own perspective. And I'm not here to say that humanity is perfect and that we're, always wonderful. We can be horrible, but I'm a human being and I'm pro-human. I'm on the side of human beings and humanity and human civilization. And I am on the side of us working our own problems out, not being controlled by another alien
yeah.
species, if that's the case. That's my attitude.
Well, it sounds like you're saying it's like you and your wife Tracy is sitting on the front porch, and over in the corner there's a group of ants over there, and all of a sudden they start, and the ants is really the metaphor for us, and the aliens are watching, and you go like, honey, those ants are going to burn up the yard. Look at that. They put it on fire. And you got the power to say, well, babe, I'll take care of that in the morning. I'm going to go down to the hardware store, and I might just walk over there and wipe out the whole colony and civilization if they don't stop this mess, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you give the ants a warning by walking around. I don't know, but that's just my idea of how they see us, and possibly saying, boy, if they don't stop, we just need to go over there and kill this ant bed, because I would do it in my own front yard. If the ants bite something or do something crazy to my kid or something, I'm like, I got y'all. I'll be right back tomorrow, and I'm going to wipe out the whole civilization. So got a question for you. We got everybody cheering. Disclosure is here. Disclosure. We're now going to find out everything. And I got to thinking last week, and I mentioned this before, when John Greenwald released that FAA, conversation about UFOs, and I'm like, and you hear the planes all talking about, this UFOs and how one of them mechanics turn off. And I know we're pushing for this disclosure. Everybody wants it. And I still beg the difference. And I said, well, do you want to get off an airplane? And then they hand you a pamphlet and say, by the way, because of disclosure, there was 2 UFOs passed by your flight while you was up there and turned off the mechanic. You didn't crash, but we just want to disclose you of everything. And I'm using that on a small level. But what are we really expecting from this push? And are we going to get what people really think disclosure is? Or does it just take the aliens just to pop out and say hi? What is that big thing?
Yeah, I don't think there's ever going to be a voluntary disclosure about the UFO reality by the United States government. They're never going to do it voluntarily. And if they ever were to do it, you have to assume they're going to be deceptive about it. Mm-hmm. They're going to be deceptive. Now, there's been a push over the last 5 years. You got people like Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, the people who used to be part of what was called TTSA. I don't think they're active anymore as that organization. Tom DeLonge, and the question is, what were they all about? What are they all about? Because they're still out there. They're still doing they're still talking about this subject. Are they doing this as part of an official U.S. government operation, or are they doing this as a faction of interested guys, some of whom have had serious classified clearances for sure? Is that what they're about? And I mean, I can't say that I know for sure what I think the question is. I know some of these men personally, but I would say I think they're good guys. I think they're trying to fight for the right cause, and I think that they do believe in getting genuine UFO information out to the world. And I don't believe that they are part of an official program of deception or anything like that. I think that they're trying to do the real thing. You know, they fought hard to get those 3 videos released 5 years ago, that the Navy's UAP videos. That was not an easy thing to do. That was a real score by Elizondo and Chris Mellon to get those videos out. So I think, you know, having spoken to them, some of them at great length, this is what I think. But having said that, there's also been a tremendous amount of pushback by the military industrial complex, by the military establishment, to any disclosure moves that they may have been trying to initiate. There's been a tremendous amount of resistance, frankly. And that includes also by most of the general media. Very few exceptions. You mentioned Gary Nolan's interview with Tucker Carlson. Of all the major media guys, Carlson, I think, is like the only major voice who's actually sympathetic to this subject. I don't know of anyone else out there who's really talking about this subject at all. So it's still like pulling teeth, getting major media recognition. I mean, it's a little bit easier than it used to be, but it's still very difficult. So I would say that there's too many obstacles for genuine disclosure. I mean, one is simply the fact that the secret is buried in layer upon layer of what is very arguably a deeply illegal structure of secrecy in our society, in our government. You talk about the U.S. government structure. The Department of Defense has got these special access programs that they're managed through an office called the Special Access Program Oversight Committee. And, you know, we have very strong reason to believe, I'm talking about, we don't have to get into the whole Davis-Wilson notes, but this is something that's very important to me. And when you study those notes, it's quite evident that we've got ET-related programs that are buried within special access programs that are so deeply hidden that even what should be proper oversight cannot be done. And I'm not talking about Congress. I'm talking about within the military itself. It is not clear to me that they're doing proper oversight of these programs. So is it legal? Is it not legal? I call it legal illegality, but it's a very dicey question of legality. On top of that, we have to ask, there's a lot of technology that's been studied below the surface here. What have they uncovered? Is this something that is desirable for them to uncover to us? What if they discovered some propulsion revolution or some energy revolution? Sounds great to us, but it would be very disruptive from their point of view. And do they want us all to have our own little personal flying saucer to zip around the world in? I'm guessing probably not. And then the other thing is, what if the secret that's being hidden is actually very unsettling? What if at least one of the groups is here that we don't know how to control them? We don't have the ability to deal with them. We definitely don't have the ability to deal with any of them. I mean, their technology outclasses our best technology as far as I can see. Right. But what if there's something to be concerned about? How do you tell the world? How do you tell the world that kind of thing? Like, it's not easy. And, you know, I think there might be a certain level of paralysis in terms of fear. And there's just way too many interests that are making money, probably, over having access to studying the technology, the biology. And now the secret's gone for so long. It's been a full human lifetime. Like, how do you unwind all of that? You know, when I started getting into the UFO subject all those years ago, it was like, okay, I didn't want to get into any weird stuff. I don't want to talk about abductions. I don't want to get into, you know, crop circles or anything. I was just like, one question: is there U.S. government interest in this? That's what I thought all I wanted to know. Well, I quickly learned, oh yeah, there's big interest. But then, like, all these other questions arise, like, how the hell have they kept this secret? Like, how do you do that? How do you manage this? Well, that got me into studying control over the media. That got me into studying control over the political institutions, over academia. All of that's real. There's infiltration of all of those institutions by the national security community so that those institutions don't step out of line. So when you open up the secrecy and you say, this is real, suddenly you're basically telling the world that everything you thought you knew for the past 80 years is basically
out the window.
A lot of it is fiction. It's fiction and lies and control of institutions that are not supposed to be controlled like that. So it's really an uncomfortable situation. Now in an era where you're not supposed to believe in conspiracy theories, bad. Don't believe in conspiracy theories, except the ones we tell you to believe in.
Right.
What's bigger than the UFO cover-up? That's like the biggest conspiracy of all. It's like, could you imagine the political establishment today, which is like, God forbid you believe in a conspiracy theory, and they were to say, well, yeah, but the UFO one, that's real. Don't believe in any others. Be like, okay, sure.
Right.
So there's just no motivation to give this secret up.
And I tell people all the time, I tell them, I said, disclosure to them is the only thing that we can prove to them that we know that they have. And they're not going to open up all those other doors and say, oh, yeah, come on over here, guys. Y'all didn't know about this. Oh, you didn't know about that. Like, yeah,
that's right.
That's
right. Exactly. Do we think UFOs is the only conspiracy that's been actively going on? Are you kidding me? We live in a world. This is a crazy thing. No one's supposed to talk about conspiracy theories anymore. Like, you get smacked down with that. But the fact is, we live in a world of conspiracies, many of them. They go on every day. It's incredible. And so the fact that people have been beaten down with this big stick, don't believe in conspiracies, like, that's a propaganda victory for the other side. And we can't let them have that victory. We've got to be able to talk about genuine, actual conspiracies that are real, because frankly, it's the nature of our world.
Yeah, that is a sadly thing, I think, when we get down to it. So let me ask you another possible question. So if we think that there's, again, and I touched on this earlier a little bit, some good ones and some bad ones, could be some battle behind the scenes on who gets the humans or who controls, between the extraterrestrials. Is that possible?
We're dishing out some serious speculation here, and I can't say that I'm going to know this. All I can say is I hear things from other people, and I wonder, and I try to hypothesize based on the facts that are available to me, and I just do my best. So within those constraints, I do believe that there is very possibly competition among other groups to some extent. I think it's entirely possible. For example, let's say that there's been one long-standing group here that's monitored us for a long, long time. Okay. I wrote my last book is called The Alien Agendas, and I speculate a lot about this. And when you go back through all of the ancient encounters that people had with advanced beings, all those beings looked human. Now you could say, well, these people maybe they weren't thinking very straight. Maybe they were easily manipulated. Maybe who knows what's going on. But some of those stories come from highly accomplished individuals in their society at the time who spoke about encountering human-looking beings who didn't come from here. So we'll just say.
All right.
So I wrote about a couple of them in my last book. But let's say that group's been here a long, long time. But let's say another group has arrived in the last century or more. Maybe that's the Greys, and they're coming in large numbers. Could it be that the people who've been here a long time managing things might have a problem with that? It's entirely possible. I don't know this is the case. Linda Moulton Howe, who, many of your listeners, of course, know who Linda is. And Linda has been someone I've just admired and adored for years. She told me years ago, and she has now said publicly, that she had an encounter with an retired intelligence officer from a number of years ago, who said that he knew for a fact that there were competing species that were here, and that humanity was kind of like the prize, as I recall her saying it at the time. So she's gotten that information. Other researchers, I think, have probably formed their own conclusions. But here's the one thing: if they're competing, they're cooperating in one important way, which is that no one's giving up the identity of anyone else. They're all very secretive.
It's like that's a whole nother hidden thing that's going on. And of course, we probably took a page from that book where we have all these secret societies, and we won't get into that. But
yeah,
it's like the rule of thumb. But let's fight for the humans, but at the same time, we're not going to intervene in some of the big things that's happening, and we're going to allow this or not allow that, or you just hear all these stories. And so at this point, I'm kind of like, okay, who's going to rescue who or what? Because, oh yeah, they're going to come and stop all the stuff that's happening on the planet, and we're destroying the planet. And okay, so last week we had a conversation, kind of off the ship here. What are your ideas of these aliens living in our oceans? A little bit.
I'm very interested in this. I'm very interested in this. On my website, Richard Dolan Members, I just completed a series of video investigations of USOs, so unidentified submersible objects, water-based UFOs, basically. And I just went into the whole history of it during the 20th and 21st centuries, and there's a lot of them. They're fascinating cases, and a lot of them are military cases. A lot of them are not military cases, but they're very, very well documented. In many instances, they are. And there's definite patterns involved. So, yes, I absolutely believe that there is a significant ocean-based presence of these other beings. Other beings and there are hotspots. So one is off the southern coast of California, near like Catalina Island. One is off the coast, the north coast and south coast of Puerto Rico. A lot of activity there, and there's a number of other places where these beings are.
Yeah, I was looking just how happened into the chat. Someone was asking about, when you're going to release the volume. I got volume 1 and 2 of these great books, and somebody was like, I think he put it up here on the chat. When are you going to, Richard, have a volume 3? Looks like it's what he's saying. So
it will happen. Here's the thing. I can no longer predict this. After I finished my second volume, that was back in 2009. That was a long time ago. Okay. So I jumped right into doing volume 3 back then, and then I got interrupted, and I ended up writing AD After Disclosure, which I was very happy to do. I did that with Bryce Sable.
Gotcha.
And then I thought, okay, I'm going to get back to volume 3. And then I ended up writing UFOs for the 21st Century Mind, which I'm glad I did that too. That's kind of like the one-stop shopping for UFOs, and happy with that book. But that interrupted. Some of the research is good for volume 3, but it was a different project. And then I did, then I got into false flags. I was going to do a book on false flags. Instead, I ended up doing a series about that on Gaia TV. And then I ended up writing the Alien Agendas just a couple of year and a half ago. So it's like people are wondering, all right, so what's up? When are you going to do volume 3? Well, actually, what I can say is I'm going to do volumes 3 and 4 because it's that much material. So I
tell you what, if information is sold by the pound, shoot, your books will probably be $100.50 a book, because there is a lot of stuff in these books, and we'll get to that in a minute. We got probably about 10 minutes left. And get you on out of here and all those good things. But I do have a couple of other questions from here. If you were to, if Congress called you up and say, Richard, we're going to give you 5 minutes to go in any one of these doors of secrets that we may have, and you got 5 minutes to choose which one you're going to go through and what are you looking for. So out of all of what you know, what information is that you will seek the most if you had an opportunity to ask our government or big secret keepers about this phenomenon?
Well, it wouldn't be Congress because they're locked out of anything that's worthwhile, in my
Okay.
opinion.
We talking about
But
some of the black ops did.
but
I
if
got you.
yeah, but if I were to do that, well, I would. I mean, just to satisfy my own personal knowledge, you're saying? I guess
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
definitely want to see a craft, and I'd want to see bodies, and
Okay.
I'd want to see a live alien being. Absolutely. And by the way, there's been a number of cases. I have loved this conversation. I've speculated a lot, but what I can say to someone who doesn't want to hear the speculation, they want to hear facts. Not only has there been massive numbers of genuine UFO encounters every year
Right.
over the years, including military as well as ordinary people, but there have been a number of very surprisingly good bits of witness testimony coming from the military about having seen alien bodies, like dead alien bodies. Many of them stored at places like Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That was a great researcher named Leonard Stringfield back in the 1970s and 80s and early 90s. And he collected many of these accounts. So if it were me, if I had the opportunity, I'd want to do like what happened to Jackie Gleason with Richard Nixon, at least possibly at Homestead Air Force Base. Nixon
Right.
takes Gleason to see, and Gleason sees those alien bodies. Of course, Gleason went on a bender of drinking for like the next 2-3 days after that. It was kind of a shock to him from how the story went. But I would like to see a craft, definitely. And I would be interested in seeing some bodies and a live being.
Yeah,
I would like to do it.
Well, then, you know what? You'll be the one. But like I said, it's just, you think about all of this and what is happening. You got Antarctica, you got, the stories of center Earth and all of these things. One of the things that I've always wanted to know, which is kind of just not even on my list here, how deeply do we see Hollywood really signaling to us what is really happening? Because they got to be getting these ideas from somewhere. Is someone leaking to them? Because I always thought maybe Hollywood is working with the big secret keeper somewhere, and they make a movie only for when stuff is found out, and they'll say, "Oh no, you crazy! You saw that in the movie." You know what I mean? Just it's like a double thing. I mean, because you think they're getting really close to these things. So we saw Predator, well, not Predator the other day, the new one that came out, Prey. Well, the alien came down, dropped them all, then went back up and cloaked and just disappeared. If though, why we wouldn't see them anyway. But where's Hollywood getting these ideas of their technology from? If you get
Well, a lot of those ideas now. So Hollywood is definitely involved in propaganda, and Hollywood has definitely had a long-standing relationship with the CIA. In fact, we know there was a man named Chase Brandon a number of years ago who made the news about 10 years ago, and he said, I was a CIA officer liaison with Hollywood, and I think that was true. And it's very clear that Hollywood does a lot of propaganda on behalf of the establishment, but they have to do it while appearing that they're anti-establishment. But in terms of the UFO stuff, they a lot of those ideas are very in circulation now. So I've had limited experience talking with some of those people, and a lot of the UFO alien ideas that they have are just really, really bad. Like they're not in any way reflective of the reality that people have. And so there's a really good case to be made that they create this image of what these aliens are. And as you were just indicating, is it a way to kind of burst someone's bubble if they have an idea? You could say, well, you saw that in the movies.
Yeah.
I think to some extent that's probably true. There's another theory which I think is probably true also, which is the idea of kind of doing a limited hangout, what they call in the intelligence agency. So we're putting ideas out there to acclimate people to the notion that this is real, and you do it slowly. If the UFO reality is as sophisticated and complex as I think it is, then imagine how far advanced it would have to have been for someone in the 1950s when this was all new to them. You know, you go back to the 1950s, those people are thinking men and some women in spaceships from another planet landing here, take me to your leader. They weren't into all this, like all the real high strangeness that we have since become accustomed to. And, you know, the abductions and the crazy science that some of this seems to involve. Maybe it took time. It took many generations for us to start getting up to speed. And if we want to look at this we want to give anyone the benefit of the doubt and think maybe they're trying to bring us along so that we slowly can understand what's happening. You could argue that there's a long-term acclimation program going on. But I know we're running out of time. I want to say one last thing here. You know, I would say that the evidence for a UFO reality is overwhelming. The evidence that these UFOs are alien in some way, I think, is preponderant. It's very, very strong. And then we want to get into what is their motivation? What are they doing? Are they here? Are they here to help? Are they neutral? Or are they here in a way that is not, that we would not say is in our interest? And, you know, we would need another interview to get into this, but I am going to suggest that at least one group is here that is not in our interest. And we've got to become aware, like, that not necessarily everyone in the galaxy is nice, and that not necessarily everyone in the galaxy has high ethics that we would consider as being advanced ethics. And they might just be out to manipulate and control. I think it's entirely possible.
I got your membership site there and a couple of your books, Richard Dolan members.com. What would they find there? Because I know there's a lot of good free information. There's a lot of, you know, different things that they can get their hands into. But then I know you keep some of that good stuff in that membership area. So
there's a paywall there too.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking, Roderick, honestly, because look, that website is how I'm able to do everything that I do. If it were not for that website, I don't know if I'd even be able to conduct that much UFO research, because we all have to find a way to make a living. And that is what I've settled on, like that. And I'm lucky because I've got a lot of very amazing people who are members of that site. So there's a lot of free content on there all the time. I mean, I'll do free videos, audio, podcasts, or articles that are, I mean, there's lots and lots of stuff there. But yeah, there's a lot that's behind for members. Absolutely. And I'll create content multiple times every week for members of my site. And as I was saying earlier, I just did I think a 7 or 8 hour, maybe it might be 10 hours worth of video analysis of USO cases. So that's just one thing that I did recently. But I'm doing a series of 21st century UFO sightings on that site, and visuals, and I do video breakdowns and all of that. I write articles. I still do articles on geopolitics. Always have to be tiptoeing around because people get very politically divided in this day and age. But I do geopolitical analysis. I've done that longer than I've done UFOs, and so I've had a few things to say on what I call the global revolution that we are dealing with since COVID has been out in the open. I think we're dealing with a global digital dictatorship.
They can find these books there too, right? Can they get a hold of these books?
Oh yeah. I have got a whole section of my books and links, and people can pick those up. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. So that website at Richard Dolan Members, that keeps me very busy, and it's like a home away from home. It's like family. The people who are there, everyone can comment on posts that I make, so I'm always reviewing those comments and writing back to people. And then we have our own members forum, which is moderated. It is literally a safe space for people who are members of the site, where they can just talk to each other without trolls coming in and just busting up parties. So that's kind of nice too.
Well, like I said, I will tell everybody, I encourage you, if you want to take a deep dive and not only just grow your knowledge from the past, the present, and to the future, that membership there, and he's probably one of the hardest working men in the UFO business and the whole disclosure side of things. And so I really enjoy that. And Richard, I got one last thing for you, and I'm going to bring you up on the screen by yourself. And if you can take 2 seconds and say, I'm Richard Dolan, and I always listen to Why the Big Secret with Roderick Martin. Is that possible?
Why the Big Secret with Roderick Martin. All right, let's see if
Yeah.
I can nail this one.
Yeah, let's.
Why the Big Secret. Hi, I'm Richard Dolan, and hold on now. I'm going to have to do that a second time. I'm Richard Dolan, and you're listening to, how's that? You're listening to Why the Big Secret with Roderick Martin? How's that? All right, let's start over. Hi, I'm Richard Dolan, you're listening to Why the Big Secret with Roderick Martin.
As a drum roll.
How's that?
I think you did good. We got a blooper reel, but you nailed it.
All right, you're being real nice. You're like, yeah, you did okay there. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Then. So we want to say, I'm Richard Dolan. I always watch Roderick Martin.
Oh, I always watch.
Yeah, we got to really put something.
I'm gonna do it. I'm Richard Dolan, and I always watch. I'm Richard Dolan, and I always watch Why the Big Secret with Roderick Martin.
Give you the
all right. Now we nailed it.
We nailed it, man. I really.
This is the first time I've ever done a live promo like on the spot. So you got.
Hey, well, you know what? You did good, but you know we have this. Couldn't edit it for you, but it was okay. You did good. You did good, man. I really appreciate you being here, and like I said, it was just a pleasure. And then talking with you today for a few hours and all of that, and it's just wonderful to really. Again, I personally say I've always looked at your information. I looked at you, and you were just on one of these people that one day I would meet. And today, not only us being face to face and having a conversation, but just the fact that there could be a future relationship, just building in this industry. And I just want to thank you for your time for that.
Roderick, I just want to say I'm glad you're in this field, and I'm glad I got to meet you, and I very much enjoyed this interview.
See, now that didn't take no rehearsal. Y'all get it? Everybody get that? Yeah, we got it. All right, you're out of here, man. I appreciate you, and tell the lovely wife we're going to bring her on here. So Tracy is going to get on here, guys, probably within the next week or two, and we'll plan the schedule. So whenever she is coming, we want to hear it, and we're not going to ask her what happens in the household between you and her when they have this conversation. And maybe we could. She may just tell us. I'm sure that's some interesting conversations that y'all have when it comes down to this. So
one thing I'll say about Tracy, we have great conversations.
I just know you do. And I hope that someday if I get married again, I want her to be right in that side where we can have that conversations. And you talking some pillow talk. Yeah. Yes. All right, man. Thank you. We'll talk to you later. Okay.
Thank you, Roderick. It was my pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Y'all heard it today. The greatness of Richard Dolan. And let me give another note. On September the 13th, we're going to have Nick Pope here. So if you guys want to look it up, make sure you kind of do that. If you find value in some of the conversations tonight, hey, why don't y'all go over to Why the Big Secret YouTube channel? If you have not done it, and if you're okay with that, subscribe to the channel, because we do a lot of stuff throughout the week when we're not here on Tuesday nights. But Nick Pope will be here on Tuesday night, so this is our highlight for you. But again, if you want to get into some of our conversations, get into some intimate talk where, we can have some engagement with you in the chat from time to time, we definitely would like to do that for you. But if you don't mind and you did find value, go ahead, take this time, hop over to Why the Big Secret YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel, hit those alerts, and watch some of the videos of the past. And then I think you will enjoy some of the things that we do. Hopefully we served you well tonight with Richard Dolan. Again, Nick Pope will be here with us, and we have a whole plethora of different people that's going to be coming, and we're going to have these conversations right here on Forbidden Knowledge TV. And we're going to be doing that. So give thanks out to Billy Carson for allowing us to be here on Tuesday nights. Definitely give a shout out to him if you get an opportunity. And if you have not subscribed to this channel, Forbidden Knowledge, make sure you go ahead and do that as well. So I'm Roderick Martin, and I just want to say to each and every one of you that it's time for me to roll. Now, you all adults, you don't have to go to bed, but you can't stay here because we're going to be out of here. And so with that being said, much love to each and every one of you. Your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. It's time to think why. So definitely open that mind of curiosity so you can do that. Y'all have a blessed one.